is the 1st of January 2025 and I'm live and I'm reading Vacation, singular, chapter 19 I am now. This is Joan Marshall Grant's description of her journey through France in 1946. It was published in 1947 and she was a writer of her own far memories. She wrote 7 books of those. Very, very good books. This one is a travel journey, really. Cynic and Samaritan. If the first interview with a doctor is embarrassing, it must be far more so when the language is foreign to a patient who is more than half deaf. Moreover, as Charles freely admitted, when the ability to hear is diminished, the ability to speak French is also curtailed. So it was with considerable lack of aplomb that we found the right house, where Charles insisted that I should wait for him outside. It was a long hour, for I ran through all the possible causes of his deafness which my limited medical knowledge and a vivid imagination could provide. Mastoid seemed unlikely, but there was always the chance of sepsis in the middle ear. So I was proportionately relieved when he emerged smiling and told me that there was nothing wrong except a block, which, though too resistant to be removed immediately, would be more amenable after it had been assailed by eardrops instilled at 4-hourly intervals. The only snag, he added, is that during this softening up process I shall be even more deaf, as both ears appear to be affected. But although you will have to shout at me, you may take comfort from the fact that you can do some shopping in the knowledge that I won't interrupt with an asinine remark or at the wrong moment. Though I denied that his comments on the subject of clothes are ever asinine, and asserted that, of course, I would not dream of shopping without benefit of his full cooperation, I was aware that there was something in what he said. He's not really helpful in shops, growing rapidly bored, when he either hurries me into a choice which I know will prove disastrous, or else employs the bulldog puppy technique. This consists in lagging behind, looking alternately ferocious and plaintive, so that I am driven by fear or pity to take him hurriedly to a more congenial environment. We gently shop-nosed until it was time for lunch. I was looking for evening shoes, but though I saw hundreds of heavy brogue and robust boots, there was nothing which could be called even mildly exciting. I found a window with superb silk lingerie, appliqué real lace, admirable embroidery, but the cheapest was the equivalent of £12, so I went sadly out again, pausing only to ask the price of an apricot dressing gown, which was £70 and made only to special order in 3 weeks. I decided not to buy anything until the last day, for the doctor was uncertain how long we should have to remain, and I was afraid of our being stranded without sufficient money, for only a fraction of our credit was negotiable in Switzerland. After lunch I sent a cable to my literary agent, asking whether the inquiry from a Swiss publisher, who had offered to translate one of my books into German, but could not at that time export francs, was still open. I received the return cable next morning, as it was negative, told the sympathetic receptionist, with whom I had previously discussed currency problems, of my thwarted hopes. But there is another way, he said. There are publishers here in Switzerland who are printing many books in English, for now that you are so short of copies, we can no longer import them. There is an English author staying in the hotel who could tell you their names, for he has found them most satisfactory. I would be most grateful if he would. Please, make it clear I do not want to bother him. Just the names on a piece of paper is all I need. That evening, the receptionist met me in the hall, obviously embarrassed. I told him your name and what you asked. He said Joan Grant and the titles of your books, but he said he was not interested. Perhaps the message got confused, although the receptionist spoke good English, or had the distinguished author heard one of the weird rumors about me, and feared I might advance upon him with militant intent to convert him to a cult or peer into his previous incarnations? Patvert must have decided that we deserved a contrast to restore our faith in the helpfulness of individuals. So he led us to a new kind of bar, dedicated to port and caviar. Outside it seemed ordinary enough, but the interior was sombre, with black oak paneling relieved only by chairs and tables made from oak casks. In the place of honor, opposite the bar itself, a stack of hogsheads gleaming with varnish and bearing in gold their honorable names immediately absorbed Charles' attention. The proprietor, a dignified gentleman in a dark suit and stiff collar, became very friendly when he discovered that Charles had once been connected with the wine trade and understood the destinies of port from grape to gullet. It was at this point he mentioned that they had just received some fresh caviar, a rarity even in Switzerland. It was served on small buttered brioche. They were excellent and not particularly expensive. Charles was still engrossed in technicalities and apparently more in Oporto or the Alto Douro than in Switzerland, so I started a conversation with a young woman who was sitting on the next bar stool. In 3 days' time she was leaving for a month's holiday in England, and having heard so many contradictory stories of conditions there, she was eager for authentic information. What should she take as a present to her host? Coffee or cocoa? She had been told they were unobtainable in England. I explained that both were unrationed and fairly easy to get. Silk stockings, I suggested. She smiled and said silk socks would be more suitable. She had obviously made up her mind and had probably already got the parcels ready, so there was no point in giving advice, though I doubted whether 2 kilos of steak would survive the journey in prime condition when carried in the same suitcase with brillantine and cheese. We then discussed the high price of lingerie, and I said how tiresome it was to suddenly find oneself free of coupons but short of money. "You must have my flat," she said with complete sincerity. "It is ridiculous to pay good money to a hotel. You will find everything very comfortable, and of course there will be no question of payment. I have a woman who comes in every day. She will do the marketing so that you are not cheated." I was overwhelmed by such generosity to a complete stranger, but she brushed my thanks aside. "I know you would do the same for me. I'm clever at knowing people. It is obvious I can trust you, absolutely." It was difficult to explain that I had to return to France, but I made it clear that if my plans had been more fluid, I should certainly have taken advantage of her hospitality. My faith in human generosity was completely restored. Nor did it fail when I discovered that she belonged to a profession older even than that of the scribe, and had taken it for granted that during my absence I should earn my housekeeping expenses and replenish my wardrobe from her clientele. The next chapter is entitled Fromage Fondu, but I read that another time. Have a lovely New Year's Day.